thinking about doing it, it would need to be so much more convenient. Maybe John could change to any kind of collaborative. That's the thing I've been doing is really synergy, so I said it would be a good one to initiate. It's only one contract. Yeah, it's one contract. Really will all be and you realize right now I'm going to be recording this. We'll talk about it next time. Just trying to be helpful. I was thinking it was a good one for you as it was good for me. So Heidi loves it so much. She comes very prepared. She and I both look blind with my pajamas. I try and run out of the house.
I'll call the meeting to order. It's 6:30. Rise for Pledge Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll.
Loretta Johnson, Randy Pelletier,
Eunice Landry, Matt Jazokis,
Carol Locke,
Jason Henner, Tim Broderick.
Heidi Duker, Isla Atkins, Lauren Crucio, Eliza Durley,
Ann Pierce.
Next up, public input.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte DeJager. I'm a longtime Alton resident. I currently work as the administrative assistant in the counseling office here at Prospect Mountain. This is my 6th year in that position. I have a son who is a senior, and God willing, on June 9th, he will be our 5th and final child to graduate from Prospect Mountain. So I'm a taxpayer, an employee, and a parent. I'm here to speak to you tonight about how 1, budget decisions, and 2, personnel decisions coming from the SAU and being approved by the board are affecting your staff here at PMHS. And I will speak from my personal experience as an example. In regard to budget decisions, back in the November school board meeting, it was recommended that my position be cut from next year's budget, and eventually it was indeed cut. For context, I work 20 hours per week during the school year, and my salary represents about $13,000 of the school budget. As a side note, just this spring, both Pittsfield and Kingswood high schools were hiring for this type of job, and it is a full-time position at both schools. So at the November meeting, you made plans to cut a 20-hour per week position, saving about $13,000. Fast forward to February. During the February meeting, you as a school board approved giving approximately $7,500 for 8 mentor chaperones to attend the World Robotics Championship in Texas for 4 days. 8 chaperones for 14 students. A more than 1-to-2 ratio, which is basically unheard of for school field trips. And this money was decided on before the team had even qualified for Worlds. I recognize that when this opportunity is presented to you and championed, that it seems like a chance to support a great program. But that one decision has tendrils of implications and is decidedly unfair to the staff and students here. The most obvious implications are to other clubs, other trips, other chaperone ratios. But from a personal standpoint, what that decision communicated to me was that you and the superintendent were willing to eliminate my position, but then casually spend more than half my annual salary to fund the travel expenses of 8 chaperones for the benefit of 14 members of the student body. Again, I work 20 hours per week for the entire school year, benefiting the entire student body. Just in the past few weeks, I have spoken with Grace and Lander, Pam's not here, and Olivia about scholarship opportunities. I'm currently coordinating with local businesses and service organizations to plan our senior scholarship night. The counseling administrative assistant organizes the career fair in the fall, works with students with schedule changes year-round, arranges all the visits from college admissions representatives and military recruiters. The person in this position organizes back-to-school nights and 8th grade step-up nights. helps run the PSATs and the SATs, and performs numerous other tasks in support of the counselors and students. This position is boots on the ground, so to speak. I work directly with students and organize programs that benefit them, all of them. But what your simple chaperone decision says to me is that you are more willing to fund a 4-day trip for an exorbitant amount of chaperones rather than pay for the counseling office to have year-long support. That's pretty hard to swallow, not only as a staff member, but also as a taxpayer. Now, in regard to personnel decisions, the people working here at Prospect Mountain are your most valuable resource, and many of your staff are feeling devalued from the highest level. The hirings and firings are causing confusion and concern. There is a culture of fear and distrust because of seemingly preferential treatment to certain personnel. The SAU continues to expand their number of positions, while staff who work directly with students are being let go. If you as a school board are gathering information and taking recommendations from one main source, then that source has the ability to control your perceptions, and therefore your decisions. And your decisions have real-life implications to real-life people. My story is only one example. There are other stories. My request to each of you as board members is that you initiate conversations with people inside the building. Please come, make some appointments, take some time to talk with the counselors, talk with the staff in the main office, talk with the math department, talk with every department. Gather information from many sources. I'm begging you to get a better pulse on the staff here. Find out how some of the top-down decisions are playing out in real life. I know that you, as a school board, want your decisions to genuinely benefit the students here, while supporting the employees and demonstrating responsibility to townspeople. But I'm afraid that some of your decisions are being misguided. My message to you tonight is not simply a plea to reinstate administrative support to the counseling staff. It is also a plea for you to become more aware of how faculty are being impacted by district leadership. Have some conversations with people inside this building, and most likely the other schools as well. Offer to listen and promise confidentiality. I think what you hear might change your perceptions and better influence your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I wasn't necessarily planning to
Can you just
speak.
state your name for us?
Oh, sorry. Kathleen Yell. I'm a resident of Barnstead. I'm also an employee here at Prospect. I teach the science electives. And like I said, I wasn't originally planning to speak, but I can confirm everything that was just said. Among the many classes I teach are field ecology. I have just less than 40 students in those classes, and I have been trying throughout this year to take them on field trips to get them field experience where we can model measuring fish, identifying them, measuring trees, all hosted by New Hampshire Fish and Game. The only thing that I needed to have covered was the bus, and I wasn't ever asking for more chaperones than me and the paraprofessionals that are already assigned to my class, and all of them have been rejected. So I completely support everything. The decisions that have been made don't make sense.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input? Just want to close public input and move on to agenda review.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. No student rep report tonight.
Anything else on the agenda?
I wanted to add something for discussion, but it doesn't look like the principal's here, so I'll just put it on for that.
Any other? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Approval of minutes for April 4th, 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes of April 4th.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Going once, twice.
You don't have it, that's what you did wrong. No offense, but
That is true.
she was a really detailed person, wasn't she, the town?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? None. Reports. Finance. It's in our packet. We have revenues, expenditures, assessments. Is there questions or concerns on any of the financials?
Assessment schedule needs to be voted on.
I'll make a motion that we approve the assessment schedule as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
I'd just like to point out, we didn't have a meeting tonight, we didn't have a forum. We did have a brief discussion of the assessment schedule. And for those of you that have been around, you'll see that it's a little bit different than normal. Usually it's very consistent throughout the year. And it was explained to us that because of how we make payments for shared services personnel and how we get reimbursed for that, there's a little bit of a delay. So therefore, Heidi is recommending that we increase the assessment for both towns by $100,000 for the first 2 months, to make up a little bit of a better cash flow for the high school.
Look back, so everyone wants to go to the towns. Okay. Same. Just shifting. Okay. Any other comments, concerns? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed, none?
Thank you, Heidi, for putting that together.
Building and grounds, we actually did meet tonight. There's actually a little update here, but also we met tonight. The only thing that came out of the meeting was 2 priority projects for building maintenance. Was the tennis courts and the resurfacing of the track. Looks like the tennis courts are one that's is more in need of work at this time. There's obviously not enough money in the account as of now, so we're probably looking at maybe next year as a possibility to do the tennis courts, between what money we have, and may have to look at some encumbered money and then keep saving it for the track. The track does have 2 layers on it, I guess. You cannot go a 3rd layer, so when that project's done, we're gonna actually take the layer off and then resurface it, so it's gonna cost significant.
I have a question for building and grounds. You know, you're talking about the laser project, but what about the repairs to the cement walkways?
Oh, we did talk about that tonight too. He has quotes coming in for the full repair of the sidewalks and resurfacing of some of the areas that actually are not in good shape. So we didn't get the quotes yet, right?
There was one, I believe it was around 7,000. Thought he said we had to go up to another one.
He's also getting another quote for the auditorium sound system because the other one hasn't come through, so he's trying to get another one to give us.
The owner sold that company, 12,000, so he's going out to bid for the sidewalk. So.
We're just worried about the sidewalks because they haven't patched or repaired.
So it's going to be on the full bid to actually cut, replace, so it matches everything, and resurface. There are a couple of areas that are not so good. So that's going out. Yes, the sound system company changed, so that one's being looked at again.
But the monies are already in the budget for this work. It's building and grounds. So.
Student rep report, there is none tonight. Principal report, are you doing the principal?
I'm going to. Jay has been battling water in his basement. I'm sure he's not the only one for the last few days, and he's not home pumping water, but he might be catching up on some much needed sleep. Over April vacation last week, the World Cultures trip to Europe was a success. I was actually, if our student rep had been here tonight, I would ask her to talk about that, but maybe she's catching up on some sleep as well.
Well, I can talk about it. My daughter was doing that.
Sure. Great.
They had a very good time. They saw a lot of stuff over there from a lot of battlefields where they visited. Most of them did come back sick though, and very tired.
I think it's really hard that they try to pack so much in. I think the nature of some of the sites that they visited was difficult for some of the younger kids especially. So there has been some discussion about maybe just having juniors and seniors go. But
Well, Olivia said it was life-altering, so that's what.
Right,
that's
no, I
the
think
feedback
it was a
I got.
great
It was
trip. I'm just-
life-altering, in a positive
I
way.
think that it was just really.
But that's Olivia, she's very upbeat.
And my daughter's a freshman, she had a really good time. I mean,
Yeah,
so I can imagine the effects on it.
yeah, no, Grace was fine too, she had a good time. She just has some sickness and some flesh-eating thing on her
Well,
ankle. I don't know.
Jeez.
It's a
Yeah.
huge time change, and, you know, they had to adjust in one day, you know, it's tough.
Yeah.
They got back at 1 in the morning, I think, Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah, midnight, yeah.
because I came back Friday from Ireland one day before that. We were exhausted for a week
Okay.
over there, and
Yeah.
then she came back, was exhausted.
Yeah, it's a lot.
The companies that provide these trips offer different itineraries, so it might be possible to.
It's just something, I
might
think
be
it's,
using World Strides right now, I just asked that, I'm not totally sure, there's a company called EF Tours that's pretty popular.
Explorica,
Does a lot
yeah.
of these,
I think it just depends on what it is that you're doing, and I mean, the battlefields and the World War II memorials, I think are in particular very, you know,
Well, and Anne
that's a
Frank's
lot of
house.
tough
Yeah,
stuff.
Frank's house too.
Anne Frank's house is very moving.
Correct, so,
I think they're doing Ireland and England next year, I think that's what you said.
Ireland, England,
Scotland?
yeah, so I think that'll be a whole
It
different
might be a whole
trip.
different thing.
Right,
Yeah, it's a
It won't
different
focus on
trip
athletics.
next year.
yeah,
So it might be okay for younger kids.
right,
But I do think, you're right, maybe also too, if they do a trip like that, should probably put out to the parents more of what they're actually going to go do. I mean, I don't think people really truly looked at it.
yeah,
Because I sit on the board, I knew what it was. explained
Right,
to my
I did
daughter,
too,
but I don't
yeah.
think a lot of people understood moving that could be.
all good though, no negatives.
Sorry. The World Robotics, first robotics championships took place in Houston. The qualifying teams are sorted into 8 divisions at the World Championships. There were 77 teams in 7 of them and 78 in the 8th. In the first 2 days of competition, they participated in 10 preliminary contests. At the end of that, they're seeded going into semifinals and finals. The Prospect Mountain team was seeded 4th in its 77-team division. It won 2 out of 3 semifinal matches before losing its second double elimination match just prior to the final and finished 4th. Most of the teams never leave their divisions. What happens is each of the 8 divisions determines a champion. That takes 3 days. And then in the last afternoon, after they do award ceremonies for all of that, then they take the top teams alliance from each of those 8 divisions, and they have a quick double elimination tournament that only takes a couple of hours so that they can crown a world champion. But the vast, vast majority of what happens at the World Championships is within each division. In total, they participated in 14 matches. They did extraordinarily well. It's their best finish. They've been to the World Championships 5 times in their history. It's their best finish in their history, and for the first time, there's some website that actually creates worldwide rankings of robotics programs, and their world ranking is now at the top 100.
That's great.
Whatever that means. Matt can talk about STAR testing, but it's in Jay's report for tonight that STAR testing has been completed for both 8th and 9th grade students, and the data is being used as they work on next year's schedule. And then fall sports have begun. My guess is that Grace would have covered this as well. The softball team is 6-0. The girls tennis team 5-1. Baseball 5-2. Boys tennis 3 wins with 4 losses. There's a unified outdoor track meet coming up May 4th this week, and the first home outdoor track meet for the varsity team is May 9th at 4 p.m. Jason.
Senior scholarship pool?
The 7th.
It's just on here. That's
Oh.
the 7th.
It's an item in the.
It is the night after your next board meeting. And there's a hand up there.
Yep. There's one.
Do we have to go, Mr. Hunter?
Yep. Yes, you go.
I try to go, you give out a couple other scholarships.
I've gone to those before. All right, anything else in there? SAU office, board committee assignments. Get a list.
Isn't it by the
Jason was supposed to email from everybody, but.
Yeah, we're all emailing you.
Yeah,
That's where it was at.
I didn't get a lot of emails.
As expected. Well, you actually might want to wait on this topic. During my report, I plan to start a discussion among all of you. And
It's gotta be
then
a
sit back and
discussion.
watch. It's going to be a discussion, I predict. And you might end up talking about committees at the same time.
We'll hang tight on that.
That's good.
District-wide technology updates. Any questions on the report in the packet? Ooh, come on up.
Questions?
You want to give a high-level overview?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things was the domain consolidation. We were really gonna have to put that off till like next year. We had a few companies go to bid who tried to merge the tenants from the 3 different domains. And they were like, pace this and it will be 2 weeks. Pam McLeod recommended Neil Richardson, who is, he's the co-chair of the ISAC, which is basically a multi-state cybersecurity company. He owns Richardson Systems LLC, and he's also the tech director at Hillsborough. He was, quite frank. I gave him what we're looking to do, and one of my reservations from the beginning was we have existing APIs, which, and if you don't know what an API is, it's how 2 programs can communicate and work together. So with Google, you integrate APIs so that you can use your Google system with other products, Here, there's a lot in place, and there's a lot of APIs in place at the other 2 schools. We also have different licensing models on all 3 domains. And basically, after explaining to him between what we have configured here for Prospect and the other 2 schools and how the licensing is working and local Active Directory syncs, he was very concerned that we might break it if we let a company try to just merge these tenants. So this is something that with time and more strategic planning, we could definitely achieve. We definitely don't want to go for it this summer. It would probably leave us inoperable come September. But like with a lot of planning and more of a slow integration, we can move all the schools into one managed Google domain. One of the other things we've been doing is a lot of cybersecurity tightening. I'm sure by now most people have heard of what happened in Nashua. They had victim of a major malware incident and put ransomware on their servers. We have been getting hit left and right with phishing scams. We have staff member forwarding me things all the time saying, Tim Broderick asked you to open a file and it's really from some random Gmail address, spoofing the email address. We've had staff fall for them, and luckily we use the 2-factor because often when these scams come in, it'll say Matt Dumont. That was actually one someone got on the website, took my picture off, and a couple other IT people, and sent a message at mdumont, pmsau@outlook.com, but it said Matt Dumont, put my picture in the email and everything. There's a problem with your account, send me your phone number right away. We get something like that. We get another one where it says, click here because Tim shared you a file. The person clicks it, and then it brings them to a Google login page. Oh, log in. They forget they're already logged in, because we're on Chrome, you're already logged in, you get your Gmail. They put in their credentials. Luckily, with the two-factor, it then says, insert your key. So we've averted quite a few disasters already this year. And what I've been doing with the domains is aligning all the OUs and the security structuring and the warnings to like match. If someone says an external attachment from any to any of the domains now, will say warning, not from PMSAU or PMSAU address, or not from BES or PMSAU address. And I mean, we just really got to be proactive, because we've been, increasing how we train everyone. We've had our Sandy Flanagan in the HR department get a bunch of emails that say Jim Lafrenia wants to change his payroll deposit. She's very astute to go, this doesn't look right. Some of them are even so advanced, it says J. Lafrenia at SAU72.org. Like, they mask it to look like the actual thing, and it's in scripting in the email that actually reroutes it to some random email wherever in Russia, I don't know. So we're trying to proactively, address this. And for next year, there's going to be a much more big training program implemented to, counter this, because a lot of districts and government institutions are getting attacked. And that just, obviously, the way I look at it and explain it is, if you were going to rob a bank and there's one building with one guy in the front, and then there's another building that has a big brick wall around it, and then a chain link fence and a tower and 4 guards and all that, you're going to try to rob the one with the 1 guard, right? So a lot of schools historically have been very lax with this cybersecurity, and people are catching on. It's easy to hack many government facilities or nonprofits. So that's one of the things I've been actively working on. And then, if as you read the report, there's a slew of things to bring into one system. When I started this last summer, all 3 buildings had completely different ways of doing everything, from management, from filtering, the way the network is structured. Slowly but surely, we're moving it all into one. We have a company that works at 2 of the buildings for the phones. We're going to have all 3 of them on the same system, so we can call between the buildings. We put all the filtering in one, so I can log in and control all the campuses. And after the network upgrade and Alton this summer, we're going to have a much better system in place there. And we're going to just be able to take all the networks and interconnect them through VPNs and operating as one system. So it's just a lot of long-term goals and a lot of chipping away. But my biggest thing Tim wanted me to explain was this, and then also about the PMSAU addresses for all of you. I've converted your pmhschool.com to now be pmsau.org. So, we can help you set up, Hannah can help you set up on your phone before you leave tonight. And basically, you're just going to log in with pmsau.org. All your pmhschool.com addresses automatically forward to that, because it's an alias. It's on that domain. Now, if you have an SAU72, my BES, we can also go into that account and forward it to the pmsau.org new address, so you'll get it all in one location the way the rest of the SAU staff does. And that's part of it.
And then we'll be able to create groups and not type in all your emails every time you send something.
Yes.
Among other things. So the shorter version of the domain merger is that we had talked about maybe that being a summer project and putting everybody into the PMSAU domain. We're going to take a full year to plan it. That means we'll still be living in 3 domains, which is mostly inconvenient for most of us at the SAU level and not very noticeable at the school level. So that's probably okay for most people, but we'll get there. The thing in Nashua, I don't know if any of you saw it in the news, but they communicated with other districts in the state and told us to tell staff, anybody receiving anything from the Nashua schools, not to open any email. They've hired a third-party investigator to assess the scope of the problem and exactly what caused it and to help them remediate. This is why a few years ago you created the Technology Expendable Trust Fund. If we had this kind of a problem, you would have that money to pay those unanticipated costs. Right now, National is having to pay this third-party investigatory agency that specializes in cyber attacks to figure out what to do about this. So that's fully funded now. I run that those warrant articles 3 times for Prospect, and it's there. So
Can I add on to that, Tim? So one of the things I did after that incident was I spent the last 2 days logging in all the servers and looking for, basically what had happened is malware came in through a client, got to a Windows server, and it basically made a local administrator account on the server and then installed like a ransomware type product. So the national district tech leader explained this and said what to look for. We're pretty tied down, so like I spent the day going in looking for any of those funny accounts, running antivirus software, and patching all the servers. We do that very regularly here because I don't ever want to be on the end of that because it's kind of a nightmare. So we've definitely gone at this so to ensure, and then like today we get another FBI warning, and it says there's a whole other type of malware that's been going around infecting police departments and other government entities. So tomorrow I'll be spending my day doing that. So yeah, we do actively approach this so that we're not going to end up on one of those maps, because that's pretty much everyone's worst nightmare in this field. Does anyone have any questions? Or? Thank you. Thanks.
Curriculum and assessment. Good evening. In your packet you have my report. A few things to talk about throughout the school year. Faculty has been focused on personalized education as part of its mission. And during our March 20th teacher workshop day, faculty were asked to create goals and an action plan based on personalization through grit and intellectual curiosity. As you know from the last data dashboard, grit and intellectual curiosity were our 2 lowest core values across the board, so we wanted to take a focus in on that. In May, we're going to be asking some faculty members to give a brief presentation on the implementation and the results of the goals that they set from that March 20th training. And then much of next year will be focused in on that personalized education, working on their units through understanding by design and updating those to focus on the personalization through core values. Title I, as you recall, next year we're going to be looking at some Title I services to help support some of our struggling learners. Mr. Fitzpatrick, Ms. Frazier, and I have had preliminary conversations regarding Title I services here at the high school next year. We have a couple meetings set up in the month of May to establish the criteria for identifying students who will be eligible to receive Title I services. PMHS will be using the STAR assessments next year as well to identify, monitor progress, and then release students if they meet those expected thresholds. So we certainly will have it in English language arts. Our hope is to also have it with mathematics. We'll focus in on our 9th and 10th graders. Frontline is a software program that we are implementing here at the high school. Frontline will be able to help us track professional development. Right now we use a paper and pencil method, so it will cut down on that process and speed up the cycle that it goes through. On May 11th, I will be working with the current PD committee and working with all of those teachers who are up for free recertification, so that we can show them how to put their new plan in Frontline. And then next year, all faculty and staff will be using Frontline for professional development. So we'll be able to track what people are doing. It'll be easier for them to track through their goals and objectives for the school year. So again, we'll continue to work with that. Both ACS and BES use Frontline, so it's aligning the 3.
I just asked a quick question.
Yes.
So is Jay going to approve professional development through Frontline also?
Yes.
So they submit it to him
Yes.
through Frontline,
Yep.
and then he either approves or says no?
Yep.
Okay.
And then it'll go to Tim and then back, so everybody's in the
So
loop.
everyone's in the loop.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So Jay would approve it based on the goals and certification areas of the individual, and then Tim would approve the money that goes along with that piece of it. Once they go, they have to do a reflection on the professional development or the course. Professional development plan. The committee and I are working to finalize the revision. Last year was adopted, but again, there were some areas that we really wanted to focus in on. Again, they've been focusing on incorporating more of that growth mindset, similar to the other schools. And then one of the pieces that will be new next year is all the faculty and staff will create a personal goal. Jay and his team will create a school goal, and then Tim and I will have a district goal. And the reason for that is with the school and the district goals, that will focus our professional development in our teacher workshops for next year, so we can start planning over the summer what we want to offer for our workshop days, and as based off of the school and district goals. So one of the things that we're trying to do is connect how professional development, teaching and learning, and the recertification are all interconnected, so they're not separate pillars. So everything, the reason why we're doing is to improve our teaching and learning. And lastly, the observation and evaluation revision. I know at the last board meeting we had the plan, and again, as Tim pointed out, that plan was not ratified at the association level. We were supposed to meet tomorrow, but some scheduling conflicts, so we're going to meet next week. And my hope is that we can come together and make some revisions to the plan in hopes of moving that forward and bringing it to you in June. I'm cautiously optimistic. So I'm hoping we have something, but we'll see as we meet next week.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
I have 3 handouts in front of you. Let's start with the open enrollment update. After your last meeting, I met with Tim Carney at the Department of Education. He had looked through the existing Board of Ed rules around RSA 194D, which are very limited, and he and I kind of worked out through discussion that it looks like there are 8 areas under which we need to submit notifications to the department. So I've listed them here and given you how we're going to provide that information. I'll bring you copies of the packet, and I'm going to have to do that at your next meeting. I'll probably make this submission to the DOE. Well, my goal is by the end of this week, so I'll probably do it by the end of next week. But it'll be done, and we'll be up and running. Our website, I have an appointment to look at pages on the 9th. That's a week from today. So it should go live that day or the following day. That's our hope, at least, if not too many changes are needed. I'm told it looks good so far. So we should have an open enrollment page up and accepting applications and inquiries in about a week from now. That's our intention. So any questions or input on any of this, I'm certainly interested, but otherwise, you already saw, I think, the most important details at your last meeting. They had to do with the admissions policy, and we've talked a lot at previous meetings about things like sports and extracurricular activities and how non-resident open enrollment students would be students, freshman and high school students, who would participate in those things here. So I don't think there's really anything new here. I think it's been a matter of determining what the Department of Ed wants us to sort of put in a package and submit to them together. So this is what it's going to be. Questions on that? The next thing I've placed on the table, this is the Tinder keg. Is that what it's called? Power keg? Tinder box? Whatever it is. Whatever it is, let me unlid this box for you. We've had some discussion, including last month, about your meeting schedules and whether it's necessary to have meetings 3 different weeks of the month, and meetings every month, and committee meetings that are regular versus as needed, and how this could all be done. So we've looked at a couple of different options. We considered what it would look like to try to have 3 board meetings in one night, and quickly decided it would look pretty bad, unless you could do board meetings in 45 minutes, which at the rarely if ever seen.
What may happen?
Yeah, so,
That's what you want.
there's something here to start your this is your conversation, this isn't a recommendation or a proposal. It's an idea to start getting you thinking. I don't know that this is something you'll do between, you know, this meeting and next meeting over the next month. We may operate next year just as you've always operated, and we may always operate just as you've always operated. But this template shows what it could look like if you tried to have all of your meetings during 1 week of each month. So for this model, it uses the second week of the month and generally has committee meetings on Monday, and then 2 of the 3 boards meet on Tuesday. The JMA meets every month, and then either Alton or Barnstead meets. Only Alton has a policy on its books regarding committee meetings, and that policy is that the Alton School Board will meet at least every other month. And the other 2 don't have policies. So, you don't have a policy problem with trying to do this. You might have other problems with trying to do it, certainly, and I expect you to. This would also require committees to give a little bit. I think the chief one is the JMA Finance Committee, which right now meets almost every month, even if it's only to review an expenditure report. The other boards have expenditure reports in their packets and don't have a separate Finance Committee meeting. And then linked to that, the way the budgets are developed at Barnstead and here for the JMA is in a series of evening meetings, sometimes 2, sometimes 4, it depends on the year and the budget situation, as opposed to the Alton Board's budget development workshop, which takes place in an afternoon. So everybody has to find a way to give up an afternoon, but it also means that budget gets developed generally in 1 day, although it can take 2. So I don't expect you to want to make all these changes. That's not my intention here. I hope I've been clear. I'm saying it over and over so you understand. I'm trying to provide something to help you have a conversation that you seem to want to have, even if it doesn't arrive at any new or different conclusion.
Does this accommodate Pam's request?
Yes.
Saw that.
I can't get to my email.
Well, I know.
She did say she has
certain weeks.
She has certain weeks, and the second and third weeks are available for Mrs. McLeod, and this
Okay, so
model
this,
is
and the Monday holidays too, are going to be an issue.
yeah,
just so you know.
what?
Like October 9th is a commissary.
There you go.
It's a person.
So October's a tough month, as you can see, right? So on the very first page, you get to October, and all of a sudden what happens to fewer meetings? But think, if you look back at your personal calendars, especially those of you who were on budget committees or finance committees and involved in any negotiations, you'll see a lot of meetings, probably in October and November. Likewise, in January, February, March, we had to think about deadlines for warrant article approvals, deadlines for final budget approvals after town budget committee budget hearings. And if you're really interested in pursuing a discussion about this, we'll double check all those things, but at first look, we think that they all work. We did look at as many of those things as we could think of along the way as we've talked about this. You also, each board has an extra meeting in December or, in January or February, in February or March, in February or March. See how confusing this is? Because the Alton board has a meeting prior to the deliberative session. The Barnstead board in March has a meeting prior to the annual district meeting. So there's no reason why you couldn't put a couple of other things on those agendas. Those are meetings. Once a meeting is posted, you can transact any business that comes before the board during that meeting.
So the JMA Joint Budget Committee, is that the finance committee that meets with?
So the joint budget committee is the committee that consists of 2 representatives from the Barnstead Town Budget Committee, 2 representatives from the Alton Town Budget Committee, and 1 member of the joint board from each committee.
I'm just wondering what I'm signing up for.
Right, and those, but that's a good question, because those meetings are set.
No. Just trying to understand it. December 21st is cutting it close to Christmas, just want to say.
You're doing natural, so be nice.
Can I ask some questions right now on this, or you just want to digest it and come back to this? I can barely keep Tuesdays open, another day of the week.
So I love it, like, because it could be less meeting.
Yeah,
I'm okay with like
just
longer
the
term.
Just to get the details.
Those that coach, it's 2 days, isn't it?
No, I know, but like, I have 3 kids, my schedule is a hot mess, like, this just condenses things, so.
I don't love the 7 o'clock start time, only because it pushes back
Right.
when we actually leave. That's,
How's it gonna work with people that dance, right? Yeah.
Don't do this. Use this as a launch pad for a discussion, please. Please.
And the curriculum committee, would that be the current curriculum committee? Or
So that's a new change. I'm not sure that, have you ever had a curriculum committee?
Well, we've had the one that we were meeting with Matt.
Right. So we identified a need for a moment that I would argue is an ongoing need. That in a system from pre-K through post-grad students, there's a need to be looking at curriculum and assessment at the board level year after year. And I think I proposed it here so it could be as few as just 2 meetings a year, once, once at the beginning, once after the midpoint of each year.
I also think it would be important for the committee to meet with the teachers, because they're the ones who are forming the curriculum. So therefore, I had suggested to Matt, when we had our May meeting, that we had some teacher representation. I don't know what that would look like, but, I mean, I can't do it in isolation. If I'm gonna talk about curriculum, I want teachers there that are actually working within the district on that curriculum. So, are we having a May meeting?
We didn't set one up only
Okay,
because
I was
there
just
wasn't a
curious,
need
yeah.
yet. But we could certainly do one if you'd like a meeting.
Well, I don't know if we need one about, I wasn't at the last one, so. Another meeting yet?
Any other, so we want to come back with notes on this for next month?
Sure.
So why don't we, future action items, we come back with their notes and concerns and put our heads together for next month.
It looks good on the surface, looks good to me.
Let's give it a surface, thank you, digging.
There really are no good answers. So there are all sorts of problems that you could find here. They're real. But there are all sorts of problems in your current realities. So it's truly a discussion.
Okay, is that one? What's this third one?
The third one's for later, under personnel.
Action items, FY24 general assurances.
I make a motion that we approve the general assurances for fiscal year 2024.
This is just so that we're notifying you that we are planning on accepting federal funds. We need it in the minutes. We've explained it to you.
Did we have a second?
Not yet. We have a second?
This is unchanged from prior years, it's just a formality, but it has to be in our minutes that we actually took action on.
We have to authorize the chair to sign.
Does that add part of the motion, chair?
Yeah, we have to authorize the chair to sign.
Yes.
It's part of the motion. Just part of the
Yes,
motion.
it's part of the motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous, passes right on. Personnel.
Is there an enclosure on personnel that we need to handle in the packet? No, I guess we have that.
There's one for a coach. Yeah.
This is not this time. Okay, so,
So you have an assistant baseball coach.
Right,
So-
so
yep.
make a motion to approve the contract for the assistant baseball coach.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
So I've given you a personnel memo with 2 topics. I'd like to go to the last page first, please. This is again to provide a model and start some discussion in advance of your next meeting. I showed you at a previous meeting a study. I don't think I gave you copies, I might have, but I think you all got copies of this, which outlines all of the different benefits packages for non-union staff in the 3 school systems. I did give you copies of the sheet that summarizes the different healthcare benefits that are available. There are, for all employees among the, I'm looking it up because it's great. There are 20 group and plan combinations and 27 different variations on how the payments are split. And the business office gets to determine which employee fits into all the different combinations of those things. So you have non-union employees in more than 4 categories, but I'll start with these 4. You have SAU or school level 260-day, that's year-round, full-time administrators, mostly required to be certified, but not quite all required to be certified. You then also have SAU or school level year-round support staff, who, for the most part, generally support those administrators. Then third, there are school level, school year only, and that's anywhere from 185 to 210 days in these systems. Full-time certified educators like school counselors or related service providers like speech pathologists, those are just examples. So they don't work year-round, but they're certified like teachers, but don't follow the teachers' contracts under your collective bargaining agreements. And then there are school level, school year, that's again generally 185 to 210 day full-time support staff. Then there are part-time employees beyond this. But those 4 categories generally encompass, or do encompass, at least your full-time employees who are not in collective bargaining associations. Right now, there is, and there's just an example here under the first category. So this would include principals, for example, right? So certified administrators, year-round 260 day. And I've just broken down in each category, and by I mean Sandy Flanagan and Debbie Brown and Heidi Duford do all the work, and I'm presenting it to you. Is that they accrue sick leave at one rate in 2 of the schools and a slightly different rate in the other. And I would recommend that you consider, and you're going to have to take this action 3 different times if you choose to do it. I'm not asking you to take an action tonight, but it would have to happen at the SAU 1 level, and then at the SAU 72 level, and then at the SAU 86 level. You may not choose to do that, but you need the information. So what I would propose or recommend, subject to your changes, is that in each of these categories, You decide what's the thing we want to do. Some of them are really straightforward, right? There's a cap on sick leave accrual. You can accrue up to 90 days, or you accrue up to 110 days. What difference does it make? Well, if somebody gets sick for an extended period of time, having those extra days could be considered a benefit. On the other hand, if you have a sick leave buyback benefit, which you also do, then having that cap lower could be perceived as a benefit. So I'm not sure there are right answers. It's a matter of finding one and choosing it. You have emergency days for these employees, although those have mostly been phased out of collective bargaining agreements. Personal days, bereavement, I won't talk about all of these things. You know what most of these are. One of the systems actually states that a principal or similar year-round administrator can have 5 professional days a year. That's a day, those are days to go to conferences or seminars or something like that. The others simply say that's by approval of the superintendent. If the principal wants or needs to go to some professional learning on a school day, then that can be approved without a predetermined. You could look at it as a limitation. You could also look at it as an entitlement, where it's no longer up to us to decide whether or not the building can afford to be without the administrator, because the administrator says, well, my terms of employment says that I have to do this 5 times. The basic PD reimbursement amount for this category, for these administrators, is the same currently in all 3 systems. And then there are others that require negotiation and approval by the board, either across the board in SAU 72 or by special board action, so it's not published anywhere, but you can go to non-public and talk to, negotiate with this employee. These are non-union employees, so any of them are allowed to direct deal and negotiate with the board at any time. It's not really hard, and nothing I've covered so far I think is difficult. You certainly might have disagreements on where you want to be, but none of that's very hard. I think it gets a little more complex when we get down to health plan premiums. Right now, SAU 72 for a principal, for example, pays 88% of health care. SAU 301 pays 91% of health care, although the board's understanding in the past was that administrator non-union benefits at the high school followed the teacher's contract, and we just realized within the last 2 years that board members were not aware that that had not been administered. So as the bargaining unit, right, had negotiated away some of their health care contribution, right? So the district is paying a lower than 91% percentage of teachers' health care. It wasn't changed for these employees, even though the school board's understanding was that these employees were following the teachers' contracts. Now's the time to address that by deciding what it's going to be. The health plan buyout, I put TBD next to that because you need to be aware that in 2 teachers' collective bargaining agreements that have been settled in the last 2 years, you have significantly increased that number. So it's something to be aware of as you have this discussion and make this decision. Dental plan premiums are pretty self-explanatory. Annuities, disability, life, or health insurance provided by the district. There's, I think, a pretty old benefit in SAU 72 that's only still available to a small number, or still being received by a small number of employees, that it's a sliding amount, 1% of salaries. At BES, there's only 1 employee in this category this year, and this benefit is an annuity benefit in the amount of $5,200. And at Prospect, it is by negotiation, and what I mean by that is that they're all over the place. So there's an opportunity to think about standardizing if you want to, and my suggestion is that you consider, just as a lot of private companies match employee contributions to 401ks, you could match employee contributions to 403bs up to a cap, up to either a hard number or a percentage of salary, which are both very common ways that businesses do this. There are a lot of reasons why a lot of businesses use this kind of system. One of them is it incentivizes saving for retirement. And even though teachers and other school employees in New Hampshire are in a retirement system, many people will probably find that it's not adequate to meet their needs. I'm looking at a member of the NHRS who's, I think, going to benefits. But it's not. There are a lot of states where teacher retirement is a lot better than it is in New Hampshire. That's not something we can change, but we can promote and encourage employees to participate in 403Bs and other kinds of retirement. And then separation compensation, I know better than to weigh in on this because it is historically controversial for school boards everywhere. And that is when you have an employee, an administrator who has worked for the district for more than a certain number of years typically, and they leave through resignation or retirement, do you do anything? Typically, because of length of service, these are employees who have accrued a number of sick days. So you have at both the elementary schools benefits that include that accrued sick time with a payout. There isn't something currently at the high school, but again, if these non-union employees at the high school follow the teacher's contract, then there would be. But it's really unclear because of the contradictory past practices here, whether or not that's supposed to be the case. So there's an opportunity to clarify this. I provided this tonight to help everyone kind of see what the decision points are going to be. I'm not 100% convinced that this can get done with you making a decision at your next meeting, but what I can commit to doing is providing the same grid that's here for the first category for the other three, and getting that to you at least at the midpoint between this meeting and your next meeting, so you can come in prepared to have a conversation if you want to. I would argue that your discussion about this constitutes negotiating employee salaries, regardless of the fact that the employees aren't here. You can go to non-public to talk about negotiation strategy when you're not directly negotiating with employees. So I will argue that you can have part of this discussion in non-public if you're more comfortable doing it that way. And I would recommend that you go back into public session before making decisions on this kind of thing. And again, I don't know if it's going to be realistic to get this done in a month, and if you can't, we have all of our existing practices.
I just want to point out at the cover letter, the phone number for the 75.
Thanks. You're right.
I have a question on your suggesting here, separation. Is that separation or retirement?
So, good question. And you could phrase it as retirement and then have it apply only to retiring employees.
What is your understanding of what it is right now?
It depends on this. It depends on the school right now. That's one of the problems. I'll look at Debbie. So the separation benefit at SAU 72 is 0.8% of the employee's salary times their years of service, plus unused sick days to the cap number, which is 90 at $125 a day. Does that only apply to retiring employees with at least 5 years of service, or also other employees leaving through resignation or termination with more than 5 years of service?
Good question.
I believe it was individually negotiated, so you have to look at each contract.
Yeah, but that's why the master chart is so long.
It's an excellent question. Yeah, I think, yeah. If it's at retirement, it helps the retirement really contribute to it.
It also helps us because if it's separation,
That's different, yeah.
it's totally different.
Mhm.
My understanding that it was retirement, but you'd have to look at each contract.
Yep, and we do have additional backup documentation here for each district. There's a short handout for the high school. There's a short handout, a couple of pages for SAU 86. There's a booklet for SAU 72. We can look at that question. I would welcome emailed questions or feedback, because that might help push this along. It's a complicated project, no matter how we do it.
Anybody have any interest in an ad hoc committee to look at this, or you just want to know, discuss it next month?
I know everybody else here doesn't want to sit on the committee, but I don't. And you knew I would.
I'm shocked.
It's very interesting to me, so.
Is there anybody else who'd like to sit with you and just take a hard look at this for next month?
Tim's on here. I said Tim's on here.
Oh, we're gonna volunteer Pam?
One per town or something.
I think one per town is enough to, at least if they work,
Yeah, one.
it'll take a hard look at it and bring back with some ideas with us next month. We'll go down public with it and just try to. Anybody from this side?
I mean, Pam's a good candidate, she's negotiated all the contracts, she said.
She'd be good.
I think Pam would be perfect too. You guys okay with it?
Plus, it should bring the confidence that, you know, what they do.
I mean, I don't wanna volunteer with us, so we're gonna have to ask her.
Oh, no, she's not here.
I'll volunteer.
Hear her.
I'll text her and let her know she's.
Involved.
Okay, she's gonna be with you next, there you go. She is a good candidate for it, because she's negotiated most of the contracts in the past.
I will contact her.
These things have been the way they are for a long time. So I do think that, you know, getting this done by your June meeting is not imperative. We could phase in over time. You know, we might want some time for engagement with some employees, even though these employees aren't entitled to collectively bargain. But, you know, they might have some feedback that's valuable. Hey, most of us prefer this kind of thing as opposed to that kind of thing. And you might find that
Yeah, I agree.
useful.
But for those of us that have negotiated contracts, and that's a very difficult process, and then when you find out that people that didn't participate in negotiation are suddenly getting all those benefits, like sick day buyback, those type of things, it's a little concerning. So I think it's important that we have rules.
So you're saying non-union members are getting those benefits?
Mm-hmm.
I see. So their contracts are a reflection of the teacher contracts
Yes.
in Barnstable?
Here.
Here, okay.
Yeah, so the current non-union benefits packages have been approved by the board. But we had to do that to kind of get it cleaned up and make sure. So
Right, to
we
get 'em-
approved one in March of 20. In Barnstead, the last approval in Alton might have
Just
been
did.
2 years ago, right? But it wasn't that long ago. I forget the date for the high school, but we've brought them at least as they are. Now, I understand what you're saying, Mrs. Landry, the way they got to
In
where
the
they
past,
are.
we always thought they should be totally separate, and then all of a sudden, one followed the other.
So what we ended up doing
Then
was,
we can't undo it.
so we ended up documenting the practices, even where they weren't consistent with what board members might have expected was happening. But those have all been approved at this point. So we have a system, we have systems we can use for another year. And
You
this
might
could be a
take that.
longer term, right? It might.
Well,
It's probably
because-
better to do it well.
Right, because consistency is important, especially for Heidi's end of it here. But I don't think we're gonna achieve that one.
I don't think so. That's why I say the ad hoc committee, to maybe you guys take a look at it, and you might can say it's gonna take a lot longer, you know, some ideas.
But if I don't do the other groups for you in the next 2 weeks, it could be a lot longer, so I'm still gonna do that, just to
Okay.
keep it moving.
Okay, let me text you later.
The other attachments to my personnel memo are for a non-public discussion first.
Okay.
All right. So it looks like we are at, we're at public input again?
I think so.
All right, so second public input.
I want to mention that in the February meeting minutes that record the discussion and motion for the funds to go to the robotics team, this is probably for you, Deb, that it is stated that the athletic boosters contributed to the travel expenses. I'm the president of the athletics boosters. I wanted to note that error. The athletic boosters did not contribute to the robotics trip. I believe it should report that the robotics boosters club supported that endeavor. I also just want to take a moment to clarify anything that could be misconstrued from my previous comments. I have nothing against Bob 319, the robotics team, or its mentors. It's a good program. What I do have a problem with is partiality being shown to certain people and programs in regard to the distribution of taxpayer funds. And also, it might be easy to dismiss my comments, or perhaps in the future characterize them as coming from a disgruntled employee, but that is simply not the case. Though I don't have a contract yet, I heard it mentioned in the previous meeting, board meeting, that some administrative positions that were cut might be reinstated. Even so, without a contract, I decided to speak up because I care about this school and I care about the people inside it. I'm concerned with how money is being spent, and I'm concerned with how people are being treated. And members of the school board, you should be concerned too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input? Seeing none, thank you. We'll close this second public input. Future agenda items and follow-ups, like the list here.
Can I add an agenda item for next time? I'd like to understand the field trip process. So we're hearing that field trips have been denied. I'd like to understand what that means. So do you submit a request? Is there a pool of money? How do they determine that? So I'd like
agree.
that on our future agenda, please.
I agree, I think that would be,
Van too, I think is important.
I just think it's important to understand it.
what makes it reasonable and unreasonable, why?
Right, I mean, when I did a budget, we had a pool of field trip monies and we distributed it evenly, and then extras were available for people, but I don't understand how it works here.
Right, I don't either.
So for next month, we also have for adding on would be further discussion on meetings, or how we're gonna conduct our meetings, or schedule them. And an ad hoc committee that will give you some update on how they came across with some ideas for consolidating all these different categories. Discussion, and then, yes, committee assignments next month.
Well, it would depend on the schedule too.
Yes.
On your schedule, I think, like in Alton, I'm used to meeting at 7:30 in the morning for buildings and grounds, but this new proposal has the meeting in the evening, so I want to look it over.
Is there any committees that have to meet before next month?
Do you want to bring both or one of building and grounds and finance to talk about the procurement that needs to be done for some of those projects, probably finance?
Finance, right, this second year of finance.
Yeah. I'm right now. I'm too, but I'm not gonna be here too.
I know Cam has volunteered to do finance for this, for the Alton board.
No, I'm not asking for me.
Next month is,
Yeah.
next month will be right before.
No, what I'm saying is because if we don't do committee assignments right now, I'll make sure if there's a meeting that has to be done, if we still freeze what you're on this second. Okay, and then we can do committee assignments next month. I just want to make sure that we're okay.
Yeah, because they didn't have a quorum tonight, so they couldn't meet.
Okay, so we're good with that then. So it looks like finance might need to meet for next meeting. Do you want buildings and grounds too? Is it you? Okay.
I think building and grounds covered your parts tonight if you're comfortable.
Yeah.
We'll get the money part straightened out with
Yeah,
finance
I
committee.
mean,
Okay.
we set up priorities.
So if Eliza's not here June 6th, so we're gonna be back in the same position with just two of us?
No, you just need somebody from each town. So we
Oh.
were both here,
I
but
see.
there was nobody from Alton.
Okay.
And maybe Pam will join, we can ask. She said she was gonna take it over for next year, so she might be willing to come.
I'll plan to use it.
But if you have multiple folks on a project, usually buildings and grounds is the coordination.
I don't care. It's up to
Do
you.
you wanna merge the two committees?
Why not? You okay merging for finance and then, because we'll make recommendations.
It's all the same topic.
Well, Why don't you schedule for the same time for both groups? So we make a recommendation to the full board. Okay.
All right, then we can just talk about the building and that stuff.
I mean,
So is it gonna be 5:30? You think you need a whole hour? You know, I'm
Well,
not
there-
trying
well,
to.
Right, I'm not going, but I mean, I don't understand why you need an hour for one
Well,
issue.
there was actually a lengthy list, just 'cause there might be multiple.
More than one issue.
I mean,
There
you'll
might be-
get it done.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right, then put it at 6.
How would we see what we had?
Yeah.
Usually we made it 5:30, so
Right.
why don't we say 5:30, if we don't need it, we can
Yep.
do 6.
Okay. Play it by ear.
That's,
Let us know how much time you think we need, Heidi. How's that sound? You tell Tim what we need.
And you tell me, 5:30 or 5:30 or 6.
Exactly. 'Cause
Dinner
I'll be here
depends
either
on-
time.
Dinner depends.
I see that now. Maybe I'll be good.
Matt,
Okay, so anything else for future agenda items?
Yes, I want to, I know this is a long list, but I'd like to discuss this since there has been a day of silence at the high school recently that's been brought to my attention, so I don't understand why that happened and is.
There was a day, say that again, there
Day
was
of
a day of
silence.
Day of
silence.
silence in support of, a certain group, and I was told that they, whoever went all day without speaking, got a reward at the end of the day.
Really? I never heard anything about it.
But I've heard from a couple of students, so I just have to clarify and see what that was about.
No idea. Interesting.
is that it?
Okay. Anything else? All right. Any other business to come before us?
Well, before you go to that, can I just quick update, strategic planning wise? I'm meeting with Heidi on Thursday to finalize the RFP for strategic planning. So we should be getting that out either later this week or the beginning of next week for that RFP. And then we had 8 applicants, or we have 8 applicants for the athletic director position. So the principals and I will be reviewing those and setting up interviews. Hopefully we'll have a candidate before the June meeting.
Are you looking for someone for all 3 schools or just the one? All 3?
All right. Any other business? Seeing none, hearing none. Looks like it. Next step is non-public. Supposed to read this non-public.
I'll make a motion that we go into non-public session under RSA 91A, colon 3, colon 2A, personnel.
Yes.
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 We are now in non-public. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Left.